You think you know the person sleeping next to you. You share a bed, a home, a life. But what if every word they said was a carefully crafted brick, building a wall of lies? Today's story is a deep dive into the darkest kind of betrayal. The kind where the person you love doesn't actually exist. Listen closely. This could happen to anyone. My name is Thomas, and for 12 years, I believed I was the luckiest man alive. My wife, Sarah, was the kind of woman people wrote poems about. She was a high-flying consultant, always traveling, always busy, but she always came home to me with the same devoted smile. We had the perfect house in Connecticut, the perfect garden, and a life that felt like a dream. But dreams have a nasty habit of turning into nightmares when you wake up at the wrong time. Looking back, the signs were there. The way she would check her phone in the middle of the night, the way she would suddenly become distant, staring at the wall as if she was seeing another world. I ignored it. I trusted her more than I trusted myself. And that was my first mistake. It started with a dry cleaning receipt. A simple slip of paper, left in the pocket of her favorite trench coat. Sarah was away on one of her emergency trips to Boston, or so she said. But the receipt wasn't from Boston. It was from a small town called Oakhaven, a place 3 hours in the opposite direction. I stared at the date. 2 days ago. Sarah had told me she was in a boardroom meeting 300 miles away. I told myself it was nothing. A mistake. Maybe she had to detour for a client? But the seed was planted, and it began to grow in the dark corners of my mind. I checked our bank statements. There were withdrawals, small amounts, cash, made in Oakhaven over the last 6 months. Every time, she was supposed to be in Boston, or Chicago, or New York. The next month, Sarah announced another trip. A big merger in Vermont, she said as she kissed me goodbye. Her eyes were as clear as a summer sky. I watched her car pull out of the driveway, and for the first time in 12 years, I didn't go back inside to make coffee. I got into my old truck, and I followed her. I stayed 4 cars back, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. We didn't head toward Vermont. We headed south, toward the coast, toward Oakhaven. I felt like a criminal stalking my own wife, but the deeper we drove into the countryside, the more the air felt heavy with the scent of betrayal. She drove with confidence, as if she knew every turn, every pothole, every tree on this road. We reached a quiet, leafy suburb. The kind of place where kids leave their bikes on the lawn, and everyone knows their neighbor. Sarah pulled into the driveway of a charming yellow colonial house. I parked a block away, watching through the rain-streaked windshield. The front door opened. A man stepped out, a tall man, wearing a sweater I recognized. It was the one I'd bought her for Christmas, the one she said she'd lost at the gym. He didn't shake her hand. He hugged her. He kissed her, with a familiarity that made my stomach turn to ice. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the little girl who ran out after him, screaming, "Mommy! Mommy's home!" My world, the one I had built for over a decade, collapsed in that single second. I wasn't just a husband. I was a shadow in the background of her real life. I sat there for 3 hours. Long after the lights inside the yellow house came on, and the curtains were drawn. I watched the silhouettes through the window. They looked happy. They were sitting at a dinner table, laughing, passing plates of food. My wife, my Sarah, was playing a part in a play I didn't even know existed. Who was that man? Who was that child? How long had she been living this second life? Every business trip, every late night at the office, It was all a brick building this secret fortress of lies. I felt like a ghost haunting a house that didn't belong to me. I didn't scream. I didn't storm the door. I just sat in the cold and let the reality sink into my bones. She had another family, another name, proud, another heart. I drove home in a trance. The house in Connecticut felt empty, like a museum of a dead relationship. I didn't confront her when she returned 2 days later. I acted normal. I kissed her cheek. I asked her how the merger went. She lied effortlessly, telling me about the cold weather in Vermont and the boring meetings. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger, a master of deception. That night, while she slept, I took her phone. It was locked, but I knew her codes. I found the hidden folders. Photos. Hundreds of them. Sarah with the man, Sarah with the child. Their names were Mark and Lily. And there was more. Legal documents, a lease for the house in Oak Haven, in Sarah's name. No, in the name of Sarah Miller. She had created an entire identity, a whole paper trail, to keep me in the dark. I began my own business trips. I hired a private investigator, not to prove she was cheating, I already knew that, but to find out who Mark was. It turned out, Mark was a simple man, a high school teacher, a widower, or so he thought. Sarah had met him 5 years ago, telling him she was a freelance photographer who traveled for work. He thought she was his savior. He had no idea that his wife was actually married to a man in another state. The complexity of her lie was staggering. She had 2 bank accounts, 2 sets of friends, 2 lives that never touched. Until now. I started making my moves. I didn't want a divorce. Divorce was too easy. I wanted her to feel the floor drop away, just like I had. I went to Oak Haven again. This time, I didn't hide. I waited until Sarah went to the grocery store, and I walked up to the yellow house. I knocked on the door. Mark answered. He looked exactly like the photos, kind eyes, a tired smile. "Can I help you?" he asked. I told him I was a new neighbor from down the street, just introducing myself. He invited me in. I sat in their living room, the room I had watched from the car. I saw the family photos on the mantle. There was Sarah smiling at her other wedding. I felt a wave of nausea, but I kept my voice steady. "You have a beautiful family," I said. "Thank you," he replied. "Sarah is the best thing that ever happened to me and Lily." I looked at him, and I realized she was destroying 2 men at once. 2 lives for the price of 1. The end came on a Friday. I invited Sarah to a special dinner to celebrate our anniversary. She seemed surprised, but she agreed. I told her I had a surprise. I drove her, not to our favorite restaurant, but toward Oak Haven. As we got closer, she started to fidget. "Where are we going, Tom?" she asked, her voice tight with a sudden edge of panic. "A new place I found." I said, "It's very private." I pulled up in front of the yellow house. The lights were on. Mark and Lily were standing on the porch. I had invited them too, telling Mark that an old friend of Sarah's wanted to throw her a surprise party. The moment Sarah saw them, the color drained from her face. She looked like she had seen a ghost. No, she looked like she had finally become one. She sat frozen in the car as Mark walked toward us, a confused smile on his face. "Sarah?" he called out. "What's going on?" I leaned over, opened the passenger door, and whispered in her ear. "Which one of us is going to take you home tonight, Sarah? The husband or the lover?" The The silence in the car was deafening. She looked at Mark, then at me, and then at the little girl on the porch. The lies had finally run out of room. She stepped out of the car, but she didn't go to Mark. She didn't come to me. She just stood in the middle of the driveway, between her two lives, and started to scream. It wasn't a scream of anger. It was the sound of a woman who had finally realized that when you live a double life, you end up having no life at all. The aftermath was cold and calculated. Mark moved away with Lily. He couldn't stand to be in a town that reminded him of the woman who didn't exist. I kept the house in Connecticut, but I sold every piece of furniture she had ever touched. Sarah? She disappeared. Some say she moved to another state, maybe trying to start a third life. Sometimes, when the house is quiet, I think about that yellow house in Oakhaven. I think about how easy it is to believe a lie when you want it to be true. I'm not a lucky man anymore. But at least, I'm not a ghost. I'm just a man who knows that the person sleeping next to you might be 1,000 miles away. The yellow house in Oakhaven is empty now. Some secrets are like poison. They destroy everything they touch. If this story made you question everything, hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe she deserved what happened? If you're looking for more darkness, click the video on the left. My first story about a beating heart and a man's descent into madness. Don't forget to subscribe. Stay vigilant.